Remember this, Japanese boy. Airplanes are not tools for war. They are not for making money. Airplanes are beautiful dreams. Engineers turn dreams into reality.
Yes! Arrivederci! We'll meet again!
Hey everyone, welcome back to your friendly neighborhood film fan. I'm Oliver Justin, and today we're reviewing The Wind Rises, directed by Hayao Miyazaki, one of my favorite directors. Written and directed by Miyazaki himself, The Wind Rises is, I think, his 11th film, and apparently was supposed to be his final feature-length film, but since then he's made more films and is planning to make one more, I think, called How Do You Live, in the future coming 2021, if I'm not mistaken. Miyazaki's films usually highlight sort of magical, fantastical aspects, contrasted with nature and man. And while this film sort of steers clear of a sort of magical theme, it is one of his most memorable works in my opinion, and is undoubtedly one of the most emotional films that he's made throughout his filmography. The Wind Rises is set in pre-World War II Japan, and is a fictional biography of the character of Jiro Horikoshi, a chief engineer of Japanese fighter planes that was used in the Japanese militia throughout the war, and the plot covers his rise from a sort of ambitious dreamer as a child to one of the most innovative designers of airplanes, and throughout his life it covers so many different events that had a significant impact on Japan itself and his own life and others surrounding him. I'd say this film is probably much more appealing to adults rather than children, unlike many other Ghibli films, or Ghibli films, because the film actually revolves around an adult, and it's a adult life, and there's a lot of realistic things that happen that would probably terrify some children throughout this film. Another aspect of the film that differs from previous Ghibli films is the fact that The Wind Rises features a male protagonist instead of a young female protagonist, but the film still brims with his most trademarks and is a delightful nod to aviation, ambition, and the pursuit of your dreams. While a lot of other Miyazaki films revolve around his creative airships and many of them explore the thrill of flying, The Wind Rises actually explores the creation of these beautiful airplanes and the beauty of aviation itself. Obviously, being a Ghibli film, we need to point out the obvious facts about them all, beautiful visuals, stunning animation, and a fantastic soundtrack by Joe Hisaishi, with its most memorable being A Journey, A Dream of Flight. It's such a gorgeous soundtrack, and I think you should listen to the entire thing. You just listen to all the Ghibli soundtracks. They're all phenomenal in their own way. While this film doesn't have the magical realism of films like Spirited Away or Howl's Moving Castles, the visuals can't really compare to his other films, but they were still extremely pleasant, and the color scheme and animation was especially gorgeous when it came to the airplanes and test flights that they were conducting. Narratively speaking though, The Wind Rises is sort of a mess, in my opinion. It's fluffy and scattered with these repetitive dream sequences that have no real momentum, and beyond Jiro's basic aspirations for excellence in aviation, there's nothing to really ground us in this biopic, Earlier I mentioned how this film was more suited to adults than to children, because I wouldn't imagine any child to sit through this 2-hour animated film of a engineer who wants to make planes. There's nothing really interesting about it, apart from some of the writing and visuals. I feel like this film would alienate a lot of Miyazaki fans because of this lack of childlike wonder that has defined every single one of his works, which makes them appealing to most ages. But the tone of this film is much more serious, and the elements of fantasy, as well as the pleasant attempts of humor, are sort of misleading in this film, and the narrative, while being sentimental and heartbreaking, is sort of emotionally scarring to a considerable extent. I know it's weird to criticize the acting of animated films, but I think the voice acting wasn't nearly as good as other Ghibli films that have been made in the past. In both the sub and dub, the voice actors don't really add much emotion to the whole film, and it sort of feels kind of stale. Some of the only decent voices were John Krasinski in the dub as Honjo, and Martin Short as Mr. Kurokawa. When it comes to talking about the romance aspect of this film, I think it's safe to say that The Wind Rises is one of the most touching love stories that has been in any animated feature. The conditions of the two lovers play a major part throughout the film, and their relationship has been established and develops throughout the film exceptionally. Overall, The Wind Rises is a technical masterpiece. It's a top-tier Miyazaki film that was meant to be his last one, but I'm glad that he's going to make a couple more, I think, in the near future. And this film is just such a marvel to look at. It's emotional, it's heartbreaking. Every Ghibli film is just so delightful, and all of them make me feel so great after watching them. I didn't really have any major issues with it other than the fact that the pacing was a little slow and the writing lacked a certain amount of depth at times, but apart from that, it's phenomenal. I would easily give The Wind Rises an 8 out of 10.